Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Modern Working Musician. I'm your host, Keegan Peluso. My guest this week is Mr. John Griffin. He is number 4 of 5 in our 5-part Nashville series that we've been doing. John is a musician. He's a songwriter. He runs a record label known as Your Name Records out of Nashville, Tennessee. And we get to talk a little bit about how he does things as a independent musician in Nashville, as far as how he goes about songwriting, how he runs his label. And then one thing in particular we really get into it on is navigating the world of streaming, which John is really, really good at. And that was very eye-opening and educational for me because I'd never really seen streaming in the way that John navigates it, which was super awesome. Also, very interesting backstory. John was very successful in the early 2000s in the ringtone industry. So we get to talk about that and also what kind of opportunities that has afforded them. And I don't know if you can hear my kid in the background. She's eating her lunch and is very excited about it. But very fantastic interview. John is a super nice guy, turned into just a very good friend of mine after our short little sit down. So fantastic time, and let's go ahead and get into it with my new friend, Mr. John Griffin. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Modern Working Musician. I'm your host, Keegan Peluso, and we are on a quest to find that there is no one set career in music. My guest this episode is my new friend, Mr. John Griffin. John is a songwriter, he's a musician, he's a consultant, he has he dove into the ringtone business, and you have a career that kind of runs the gamut, which is perfect because you kind of encapsulate what it means to be a modern working musician at this time. So thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Always at the beginning of the show, I like to kind of go way back and just how did you get your start in music?
Like as far back as like my mom used to sing alto in the church choir.
Yeah. Man, we can go like I was 4 years old and I got a guitar for Christmas. We can do that.
I always loved music. I took a little piano when I was younger. Mom played piano, and my sister got to take guitar. Like she took for 5 years, and then she kind of gave it up. And then I kind of was interested in guitar, and my parents were like, well, your sister took for 5 years and just quit, so you're on your own.
Oh, yeah?
So I'm self-taught guitarist, and I would say in high school, I kind of really got into music, and my senior year started a band to play in the high school variety show.
Oh,
so
that's awesome.
We did I think we did Twist and Shout, the Beatles, and Every Rose Has Its Thorns. So that was our two go-to songs.
That's awesome. Any choir or band, anything at the time?
Yeah, I did choir in high school, sang
awesome.
in choir in church. So
that's fantastic. We have a lot of band and marching band people because I taught marching band forever. So it's really nice to have somebody like, oh yeah, I did choir. That's awesome. So choir nerds unite. So.
Well, my claim to fame was first C trombone in 6th grade.
Oh yeah, there you go, man. There you go. Did you give it up after 6th grade?
Yeah, I gave it up after 6th grade.
I gotcha.
And there were only 3 people.
Hey, man. You still rose to the top. That's what matters. Rose to the top. Heck yeah, man. After that, did you go to college for music or anything like that?
I didn't go to college for music. I thought I wanted to be a marine biologist. I'm from North Carolina originally, and so I went to UNC Wilmington. And after the first couple of years, I was like, I don't think I want to work with dolphins. and so I transitioned into social work. People were like, you're really good with people. And already by that time, I had really caught the bug for music. Was out singing karaoke. It's kind of funny. And people were like, oh, I really started to like country music. And by halfway through college, I knew that I wanted to do music I will. I'll tell you the reason why I wanted to become a songwriter.
Yes, that'd be great.
It was a English class, and we had an assignment to read a short story. And the teacher was like, "Okay, for your assignment, I want you to rewrite this short story from another character's perspective." She said, "Or you can write a poem about it. I don't care. You can write a song about it." And when she said that, something clicked.
Oh, really?
And I was like, "I think I can write a song about this." The short story was Cathedral. I can't remember who wrote it. Went home, wrote this song, and the short story was about someone trying to describe a cathedral to a blind person.
Oh, wow.
And so I went home, wrote the song. Next week, it was my turn to present. Brought in my guitar, played the song. The classroom was like, "Oh, that was great." Mm-hmm. Got an A+ on the project, and I was hooked. I was like, "Okay, I think I can be a songwriter."
That's cool. We talk often on the show about like that aha moment of like, this is it. That's what I'm doing.
That was definitely I remember that when it was. I remember her saying like, "Or you can write a song about it." And when she said, I was like, "I think I can write a song about this short story."
That's very cool. Very cool. So that was in high school, correct?
That was in college.
Oh, excuse me. So that was in college, and at that point, you're like, all right, time to start transitioning to wanting to do writing for a living.
I started writing songs. I produced a cassette of 4 songs that I'd written, and I sold them to all my friends.
Oh, that's awesome.
Recorded. My cousin had like a studio and just recorded some stuff, and like I said, yeah. Sold it to my friends.
Cool. Please tell me you still have one of those cassettes.
Somewhere.
There we go.
Somewhere.
If you ever track it down, I got to hear it, man. I got to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but you can't put it on the podcast.
I will never air anything against your will. Don't worry. No, that's amazing, man. So I know for me, when I first started playing music, like professional songwriting was like, I was way farther in my music career when I found out like you can be a professional songwriter. Like what kind of opened your door into like being a professional songwriter?
Well, I would call myself a semi-professional songwriter, but I think when I moved to Nashville, like I knew pretty much, like I said, halfway through college that I wanted to do music, and I was really into country music, and I was like, oh, I should move to Nashville.
Gotcha.
And so after I graduated, I just like made a beeline to Nashville. And when I got here, just everywhere in Nashville, there's people that are playing writers' nights. And you go to these writers' nights, and every once in a while you'll hit one where you're like, oh, I know that song from the radio.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, when I first moved here, I was working at a before and after school program with kids, and I would bring in my guitar and play for the kids. And this lady came in, one of the moms, she's like, oh, my boyfriend is a songwriter. Bring me a tape and I'll play it for him.
Oh, wow.
And by this time I knew everybody was a songwriter. I was like, no big deal. And she was like, oh, well, he's actually playing this weekend at Davis Kid over in Green Hills. And you should come out to see him play. Went out to see him play. He was like, he's really good. And the last song he played was a top 10 hit by Lori Morgan. What part of No Don't You Understand? And I was like, okay. Went back home, started making a tape.
There you go, man.
The Monday morning, I handed her a tape, and I was like, he was great. You don't mind giving this tape? She's like, it might take him a while. He's really busy to get back to you, but he'll get back to you. The next day he comes in. He's like, I really liked your stuff.
Wow.
He's like, let's set up a writing appointment. And that was my first experience writing on Music Row here in Nashville.
Wow, that's fantastic.
With a hit songwriter.
Oh, wow, that's amazing, dude.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything about that experience in particular?
Yes, I remember that I was woefully unprepared.
Oh, really?
So I went in, and he was like, basically, this is how it's going to go. We'll write the first verse and chorus before lunch. We'll go to lunch. Then we'll come back and we'll finish the song. And I remember after that having this knot in my stomach of like, that's not how I've experienced songwriter. It was more kind of like, you just kind of like ponder on it, and and they really are just set of like, hey, we're going to churn this out. He told me that he wrote thousands of songs a year.
Goodness gracious.
And just like he would just churn them out. And subsequently have met other songwriters that are commercial songwriters that they do that. They just write. They'll write 2-3 songs a day.
Yeah, I remember reading an article about being one of those Music Row songwriters that did that, and the motto at the firm was like, "It's 8 a.m. time to be creative."
Yeah,
like you walk in the door and you go.
I have never been like. I mean, I've tried, but I've never been that type of writer.
I gotcha. Did you not do more writing sessions with him after that, or?
I think I did. I mean, I don't think we ever got anything stellar.
I got you. So going back into that, is that like so? Like if sorry, I'm drawing a blank here. I guess that would be like a good lesson for somebody who gets into that experience. Is like this is how like they churn it out, and you've got to be ready for that to move quick and stuff like that.
And then now people that want to write with me, like there's a guy from the Netherlands that is visiting right now, and he wanted to write with me, and he's like, I've never written with anybody. What's that like? To me, it's just kind of like getting to know somebody. You have to feel comfortable with them to kind of like really share back and forth, and I mean, that's for me, like the first 2 or 3 writing sessions for me, I don't care if we don't get anything accomplished as long as we're building up a nice chemistry, nice rapport.
Totally.
Yeah.
Very cool. How would you say that your songwriting has changed over the years? And you can just give me some highlights. You don't have to like run the gamut of how it's changed over the years.
I mean, I think I'm more try to be more wary of not using cliches.
Really?
And I feel like I'm my own biggest critic when I come to songwriting. Like, I don't share stuff a lot unless I feel it's like really good.
Okay. Very cool. Now, I was going through the Spotify playlist that you sent me of tunes you've written and stuff, and some of them have gotten quite a few plays and stuff like that, which is really great. How does that process go about when an artist picks up your song and stuff like that? Speaking from a total layperson.
Yeah, honestly, a lot of the artists that I work with are either people that I have found to write with. So not a whole lot of people knocking on my door like, I want to record your song. Most of the times I write the songs with the artist.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you reach out to them very often? Like, hey, I love your stuff. I'd love to write with you sometime. Or is it vice versa?
Well, the first artist that I really had a lot of success with, Tyler Barham, he was a YouTube kid who kind of hit really early on YouTube by doing covers. And he already had this is about a year after YouTube, year or two after YouTube started. He had 10,000 followers. He could post a cover song and have 5,000 views within a day.
Wow.
And so reached out to him and I was like, hey, would you like to write some songs together? And we wrote for a whole year, wrote for a project, and just kind of tapped into his fan base for music. So that's kind of been my thing. Either an artist will reach out to me to work with, or I reach out to them and try to develop a relationship.
Very cool. That's very cool, man. I love that idea of just capitalizing on, or finding somebody who that is on the up and up and hey man, let's work together. I think that's a great networking relationship.
It was 10 years in. I was here 10 years and just not having any success. The normal way of getting a publishing deal and writing and stuff like this. And I specifically remember thinking, okay, you got to figure this out, or you need to move home and find something else to do.
Gotcha.
And that was just reaching out to either people on MySpace, YouTube, and working with people that way.
Gotcha. Very cool. When it comes to self-publishing, what are some things, what are some things that you think the average person needs to know if they're trying to self-publish?
Well, finding a good, ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC, you got to figure out which one fits you best as far as performance rights organization. Also, you got to know where your revenue streams are coming from. There's several, as a writer or as a self-published songwriter, there's several revenue streams that you might not know about.
Yeah.
But means that there's a lot of companies out there that you can sign up for that collect those royalties.
Very cool.
For you.
I got you. So finding a good PRO.
Yep.
Find it. Very cool. What, if any, can you think of certain revenue streams that you think often go overlooked?
I there's not a whole lot of money in the publishing side. Like when the streams are, my thing is that if you're working with an artist, if you can own the masters for it. So me and my buddy Dave Flint have a production company / record label, and so we, provide all the production. He does all the production stuff like that, and the artists don't pay for anything, but we own the masters. So if you can own the masters and you're publishing, you're making more revenue stream through that way.
Gotcha.
That's the only way that I've figured out to make money.
Gotcha. Is that where the record label kind of came from, like out of necessity?
I think so.
Those things.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So with Tyler, we just kind of like, he didn't have money to pay to have stuff produced, and didn't know how to release music. So, we kind of provided that. I mean, the artists who we work with get a really good deal. I'm like, they'll never get anywhere else. The percentage, I feel like we're super fair.
That's very cool. And the name of it's YN Records, correct?
YN Records.
Cool.
And it comes from, I know you said you want to talk about the ringtone stuff. Yeah. That name kind of generated from the ringtone stuff.
That's very cool. And we'll link to all the YN Records stuff in the show notes and stuff like that, so people can find it. So very cool. What kind of, and you don't have to run me through all of it, but if you could give me maybe top 5 things, like the kind of legwork that goes into starting up your own record label.
It really did just start, kind of organically. Tyler, who we were working with, we were able to chart him on Billboard, and Billboard actually reached out to us and said, okay, we need to know the label name, if you have a logo, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, we just were doing this, we didn't really have anything formulated. So we came up with the name YN Records, and, came up with a logo. And so I don't think there's really anything that you have to do to create your own label. I mean, we are a LLC, but for tax purposes, but
right,
it's pretty easy.
That's very cool, because I think a lot of people, when they hear starting a label or getting signed to a label, there's a lot of mystery enshrouded in what it's going to take. Is it going to be this giant thing? Do I need to hire a lawyer and stuff like that? So it's really nice to have a little bit of that just demystified. You know what I mean? So that's very cool, man. Did you guys have a legal team for your contract negotiations and stuff like that?
We just kind of, you find stuff online and you kind of modify it. And when you're in the industry, you can ask people what do we need to make sure, that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted to make this legitimate. And, so that's kind of how we've operated.
That's really cool, and I really appreciate that, because, some friends and I, we produce a lot of music on our own. We produce for other artists, and there's always been that talk of should we do the indie label thing and stuff like that. It's we need to do I automatically go I'm gonna have to do so much paperwork. Oh my god! But,
no, I mean, and I think it's just if you're working with people that you trust, and it's always good to have something in writing, but. You can make the contract just as fair as possible.
Very cool.
Just so everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah. How many artists do you have on your label right now?
So we have some that are kind of inactive. As far as active, to Clayton Smalley and Justin Harden, and we still work with Tyler Barham, Parker Redmond, and then we're also working with a couple of hit songwriters that have had several number ones.
Very cool.
Releasing songwriter versions of their hit songs.
Oh, that's really cool.
Billy Montana, I think he's had 5 number ones, and Steve Dean, who has 6, and they run the gamut from Sarah Evans, Garth Brooks number 1, George Strait number 1s, Reba McEntire number 1. So these guys are heavy hitters.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And great guys.
That's really cool. And it's nice that you cultivate it. It sounds like the foundation of your label is built on good relationships first.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool.
So Billy Montana, he was like a second family when I moved here. So
really?
They kind of took me. I knew him before he had any hits, and if I wasn't going home for Thanksgiving, I was at their house went to church with them. So it is relationship, over 25 years.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
That's really cool. As far as the record label goes, we've talked a lot about publishing and stuff. Do you offer any other support for your artists as far as like marketing or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit of my expertise is understanding how to make a fan base work towards a common goal. Mm-hmm. So for Tyler, like if you're doing a pre-order, I know exactly, not exactly, I know kind of approximately how many pre-orders you need to chart on the iTunes charts.
Gotcha.
Or, I know that on Spotify there's some key numbers that you need to reach with followers so it triggers the algorithm. There's things that I've learned over the last 15 years of releasing music on my own, of how those things work.
That's really cool. What are some key factors that go into like whether or not you want to work with an artist?
I mean, I think it's just kind of like the chemistry. Like if you just kind of feel like you connect with them. Mm-hmm. The most recent artist, Clayton Smalley, reached out to me on Instagram, and I went through a phase of about 6 months where I don't know if you've experienced where people would follow you and then unfollow you. So it's like there's an app that would do that. It was kind of like they were trying to build up their numbers. So anytime someone would send a request, I would send them a message like, "Hey, how did you find me? Tell me about yourself." Yeah. And a lot of times you get crickets. So with Clayton, he's like, "Oh, you came up as a suggestion for me to follow on Instagram." I said, "Okay, well, checked out some of your stuff. You sound really good. Keep me entertained." And that's how it started. And and then I started listening to his YouTube stuff, and I was like, "Oh, he's really good." And just reached out to him and was like, "Have you ever written any songs? And would you like to write together?" And that was like 3 years ago.
That's great. I love how it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like genuine relationships and stuff like that. Like your decisions for who you work with is based on like how much you enjoy working with that person and stuff like that. It's not like, what you can, I feel like a lot of people, when they think about like signing or working with a label, they think the label's like constantly like, what can I get out of you and stuff like that. But like, it sounds like your entire work dynamic is about like, forming good relationships, and like the people you decide to work with people you think are great people first. Yeah. So that's true. I think that's really great. Do you support, like if your artists are going on tour or anything like that, do you offer any kind of tour support, or is it mainly just
not really? I mean, a lot of the guys that we work with have day jobs. So, they're touring on the weekends or, I would say that we're more for, artists that are kind of enjoying putting out music. It might not be their main goal is to be like a full-time musician. Mm-hmm. And I think there is like a niche for that. Like everybody thinks like you've got to make it like, there's a whole lot of, there's like everybody's definition of that is different. Yeah.
We've talked about this on the show before. A good friend of mine, his name's Dan. He lives in Franklin. He teaches Franklin High School's percussion section. He's like a very accomplished composer and stuff, but he's also an accountant. And like his being an accountant allows him to enjoy, because he was a band director for years. Yeah. But now he's an accountant. He can like only do the parts of music that he enjoys and doesn't have to do any of the other parts. So I think that is very valuable. Like you said, like that doesn't make you any less of a musician or a songwriter.
It doesn't. And I mean, I was an early adopter of streaming music. Mm-hmm. I've found so many artists that I would have never heard of if I just listened to radio. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing. Like you can go to their pages and they have millions of monthly listeners. I'm like, how have I never heard of these people? Yeah.
I think the internet has really opened some doors as to what is and is not accessible. Because people it's really easy to be like mainstream music these days, but we're like literally the smallest amount of effort, you can find some of the most incredible music out there. Yeah, it literally just like takes a YouTube search or a Spotify search to find some incredible stuff.
I feel like the streaming services really have opened up the door to just people that don't want to be in the business or don't want to like conform to what's going on now, and then they hit.
Now, did the label start pre Spotify or post?
It was pre Spotify.
Pre Spotify. So how did streaming change the way you ran the label?
It has. So at first we would release. I mean, we've never really released albums. We've always done like EPs, and so we would focus on doing like 5 or 6 songs, like every 6 months or something like that. And now streaming, it's singles. So we just try to keep releasing singles every like 6 weeks.
Really?
And sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But we really, the last EP we released on Clayton, it was like number 6 on iTunes in the US. It was number 3 in the UK. But the one thing when you release an EP with a single, you can actually submit for feature through Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon for every single. But if you release an EP, you can only pick one song.
Oh my goodness!
To be your focus track.
Huh.
So you've kind of like you the trade-off is that we got really good chart position on iTunes and it looks good for fans and stuff like that. But then you can't feature all of these songs. You can't like request to have these featured.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to like measure your trade-off a little bit. Like, what are the pros and cons of each? Could you possibly, because I don't know the rules, like if you did like release 4 singles and then release it as an EP, is that possible or is that like against the rules?
You can. No, you can. We just did that with Clayton's. We took all of his original music, 2 EPs and several singles, and released it as a compilation project. And we're still, always fighting to try to get like some kind of feature or like positioning and stuff like that, which is difficult.
Gotcha. What is the process like to submit something for a feature? Do you have to be a label to do it, or can you end up being an individual?
Well, so Spotify and Amazon and Pandora all offer every artist the opportunity to submit through a portal to feature music. iTunes, you have to have a connection, which luckily I do.
There we go. Shout out to whoever your connection is.
Yes, thanks.
That's very cool. So it's just like a submission sort of thing?
Just like a submission.
Gotcha.
I'll be happy to show it to you.
Dude, yes. This is why we have a podcast, so I have an excuse to learn things from you. So I'm so excited right now. I'm learning so much. Do you find... have you found any kind of commonality between the songs that have gotten featured and the songs that haven't?
Not really. I mean, honestly, we released a song on Clayton called His Guitar. True story about his grandmother giving him her dad's 19-something Gibson guitar, super old, worth a whole lot of money. And it's just like not like what's out on the radio at country music and stuff like that. Very kind of old school stuff like this. And I was like, this is more of just like, oh, this is fun to release, and it's done really well. Wow. And I think the authenticity of the song might have played to that, but it's just kind of like a really traditional sounding song, but it did well and got a lot of features.
Do you feel like since streaming has come about that genre kind of matters less? Like, I feel like things are becoming less and less streamlined as far as genre goes.
So that's tough because country music is going through a battle now of like what is country and what is not country. I think it's fine that the genres are kind of, if you're just like a music lover and you like all kinds of music, it doesn't matter. Right. But if I was a fan of a very specific type of music, if I were saying I like country music, in my head, I think 90s country. Yeah. For someone now, they're thinking a whole different thing. Right. So, but there's to me, there needs to be some kind of like definition of like if I'm going into a streaming service and I'm looking for a certain genre, I want to be able to find it and not be surprised like, oh, this is not what I was looking for.
Right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's like it almost reminds me of like heavy metal music or punk music.
Yes.
It's like that's not metal. That's post-metalcore, hardcore, thrash. And
yeah.
stuff like, and that seems like it's like that's not country. That's 90s alt country. That's outlaw country. Or that's was it Red Dirt? I think that's
Red
another.
Dirt is another one.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to start a new one called New 90s.
Ooh, I love that.
So it's just kind of like because 90s music was. I think it was like a balance between kind of an outlaw and really good lyrics and good melody. Like but it was like it wasn't too trying to be too full of itself. It was just fun, good lyrics.
We can cut this. This could be re-roll if you wanted to. But I actually read an article about how like 9/11 redefined country music.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was like after 9/11, it was like overt patriotism constantly in your face, and like that was the like tonal shift of country music.
Oh, I can see that.
So, I mean, I think that's why a lot of people go back because like 90s country is really like it's unassuming, it's very like it's fun, the lyrical content's great, it tells good stories and stuff like that, and somewhere like in the mid 2000s it was like brand placement and patriotism were like the two overt themes of country music. So I don't know how true that is.
No, I mean, I, now that you say that, look, just thinking back of the songs that kind of mean Alan Jackson, where were you when the world stopped turning? Like, you just,
Yeah. So I don't know how true it is. I read that and I was like, maybe correlation doesn't equal causation, but that's a really interesting fact.
Well, going back to like, the genres kind of like the lines between them kind of dissolving. I really do listen to my Discover Weekly on Spotify. I don't know if you're a Spotify guy.
Oh yeah.
But so every Monday they come out with a new playlist of songs that they, think that I like based on my listening habits. I love it.
Same. It's gotten weird. It's gotten really weird at times, but for the most part, I really love it.
Yeah.
So, how have you ever found a new artist through Spotify that you've worked with?
I don't think so. No. I mean, I've definitely found artists that I've tracked down and like communicated with.
Yeah.
That's fun.
That's great. Like, I heard your stuff. It's amazing.
I have a funny story. One night I fell asleep listening to music, and I woke up to this song. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name. But immediately, like, this song so hit me that I got on Twitter and I just tweeted the guy and I was like, "Oh, I just found this song. It was great." Next morning, I woke up. He replied to it. I was like, "That's pretty cool."
Yeah, that is amazing. I did that with
It's Bruno Majors. Is the guy's name? He's from the UK. I think that's his name.
Write it down. I dropped my pen. Let's see. Bruno Majors. I'm gonna write that down.
I think that's what it is.
I did that. Do you know who Katie Pruitt is?
I don't.
She lives in Nashville now. Actually,
Oh yeah.
I like took a shot in the dark and messaged her on Instagram. I was like, "I'm in town. I love you. Will you please do a podcast?"
That's great.
But yeah, she came up on. She left me on red, but it's fine. She's very busy. But yeah, dude. She is absolutely ripping, and she's like championing like the like LGBTQ.
Oh great.
Country music scene because she's. But she's like absolutely just peels the paint off the walls with her voice. Like, oh my gosh.
I'll have to check her out.
Yeah, she has a song called Out of the Blue. My wife can't listen to it without crying. It's so good.
Oh, yeah?
yeah, it's good stuff, man.
I'll have to check it out.
So, I'll send you some of her stuff if you want me to.
Please.
That's great. A lot of people talk about how streaming, like the payouts and stuff like that, are not great.
It's low.
Yeah. It sounds like we've talked a lot about streaming in like a really positive light.
Yeah.
Too. What are some ways that have helped you kind of compensate for what people see as like quote unquote like unfair pay rates and stuff?
Yeah.
Since you run a label.
Well, when people give the pushback about streaming, first of all, we have to think about what it took the place of piracy.
Right.
So, and interesting fact, the streaming site that plays the most now, Napster.
Really?
Almost a penny a play. But they only have
What are the odds?
they have such a low subscription rate, and Spotify is like and I love Spotify because we have contacts there, but Pandora is like a very underutilized. They have tons of stuff for independent artists. They allow you to feature tracks. They allow you to put audio messages before or after songs. A lot of great tools there. But as far as you're asking about, like kind of like compensating for,
Right.
man, I think it's merch or it's, using the streaming services it's almost like a little bit of a paid advertising. You're not having, if you have a really good song, it triggers the algorithm. You just have to use that exposure for your advantage.
Yeah. We've talked about it, like Spotify being like your, almost like your musical business card.
Yeah, exactly.
So like here's some Spotify playlists, and if you really like it, people go buy merch and
Yeah.
things like that. Do you feel, you said something about like having contacted Spotify and stuff like that, which I'm not going to throw anybody else, but do you feel that artists and labels are starting to have more negotiating power with streaming services versus like when they first started?
I remember when Spotify first came to Nashville. A friend of mine, she's like she books, or she's like kind of like a PR person to try to get people to events. And Spotify came into town, and it was nobody liked them.
Really?
And so it was finding, they were basically trying to woo over Nashville. Like, hey, don't be afraid of us, And I think, like you're saying, like the payouts are so low, especially for writers. Like, there's a different, revenue for the person that owns the masters, which I was going back to. If you can own the masters, do that.
Right.
And most independent artists do. But for the songwriters, that payout is really low. What was the question again?
Oh, do you feel like over the years have artists and labels gained more negotiating power with streaming services?
I think so. I guess it depends on how big of an artist you are. Like Garth Brooks, I'm sure has a pretty sweet deal with Amazon Music because he's kind of like a little bit exclusively over there.
Yeah, and I remember explicitly like the Taylor Swift Spotify
pulling out, and then a lot of other artists pulling out. Then that creates a vacuum where if you're smart, you would record some Taylor Swift covers and put them up on Spotify.
Yeah, there you go, man.
And people did it. People have done that, and
yeah, I think that's like the Garth Brooks you can find on Spotify.
Yeah,
is covers of Garth
guilty.
Brooks.
Like one of our artists have recorded a cover of I can't remember which song, of a Garth song, and it's a really good version. So it's
That's
out
great.
there when people are searching for Garth Brooks, they'll find it.
That brings me to a really interesting question that I didn't learn about until like my brother was doing the thing like on The Voice and stuff. When you're releasing a cover song, what kind of bases do you have to cover to release it on a streaming service to get revenue and also like not get sued and stuff like that?
Yeah. So you can just get a mechanical license. Once something has been released, it's kind of fair game to record it. So, and we use DistroKid for our distribution. And so they offer a licensing thing. You just click the tab and they charge you $12 a year, and they take care of all of that red tape for you.
Well, that is wonderful. I have a DistroKid account, so
Yeah.
man, I did not know it was that simple because like I think about covers all the time. Like, how do you not get like you think it's going to be a lot more.
They take care of it.
Have you ever gotten anything like pulled that like the artist didn't have permission or anything like that, or has everything been fair game?
Yeah, everything. Sometimes you'll run into a problem with like YouTube will flag stuff or pull stuff. Like if I were to upload something that we created, or even something that I wrote onto a YouTube page, YouTube will flag it because they don't know that I own it, or so you have to kind of go through your distributor to make sure that yes, we're allowing this to be used on YouTube or allowing this to be used for whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think It makes me want, I think YouTube stuff, it's got to be like AI based or something like that. Because, like,
Yeah.
I've had my own music flagged. Like, you don't know this. Like, I wrote it. This is
Yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. I do want to jump back just a hair into. YN Records stands for.
So we call it Your Name Records.
Your
and
Name
it's a
Records.
derivative of the ringtones because we have a
gotcha.
brand of ringtones called Your Name Ringtone.
Gotcha. Your Name. I'm sorry. I was going off your Instagram handle. So Your Name Records.
Yeah.
So how you were telling me this just incredibly fascinating story about how the ringtone thing came about. So if you would just kind of jump back in.
Yeah. So this was back in the MySpace days, where you could put up your music. You'd have a band page, put up your music. Most of them were just songwriter demos. Mm-hmm. And I had some followers that were just really supportive of me as a songwriter. Mm-hmm. And around the same time, I'd found an online site called Mixer, which was like the Napster of ringtones. And they had an option on there where you could upload ringtones and actually sell them or give them away and stuff like that. And so I thought, oh, it'd be cool. I'll just write these two ladies a personalized ringtone for their phone. And ringtones back then, it was like 2007, were huge.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there was commercials on TVs about ringtones.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's so crazy to think about now because, like,
Yes.
I don't remember the last time my phone wasn't on silent.
Well, I'm telling you, it's coming back.
Really?
It's coming back. I'll tell you about that.
Sorry.
So I wrote these ringtones, uploaded them, set them as free for them to download, and then I started seeing that other people were downloading. First one was for a girl named Jennifer, and the other one was for a lady named Denise. And you would get these, like 17 people have downloaded this ringtone today, and I'm like, all right. And they had an option of like, oh, you can sell these for like 99 cents or $2, $3. So I set it at 99 cents, and people kept on downloading them. Mm-hmm. I made sure that they got them for free.
Yeah.
First of all, so I put like a little note and said, hey, if you want me to write a ringtone for your name, PayPal me $1 and I'll write something for your name. So for 6 months, I would have people would email me the strangest names, and I basically wrote like a little song for their name, mm-hmm. and send it back to them and put it up there, put it up on the site. People would start downloading them, and then 2008 rolled around, and my production partner Dave Flint, I just went to him and said, hey, I don't know what this will make, but if you'll produce these tracks, I'll write them and promote them. And we basically started off top 50 guys and girls' names, and created a kind of like just plug in the name for mm-hmm. the ringtones, and they were just hugely successful.
That's incredible. You said at one point the website contacted you.
They did. They contacted us, and they were like, and we were already making like $15-$20 a day off of these ringtones, mm-hmm. and they were like, we want to offer you an ad-based revenue off of this, and we think you'll make a lot more. Like, no, we're fine. And they're like, no, really, this is kind of what you'll make, and so we decided to go for it. And within like the first day we went free, it was like 5,000 downloads. It was nuts.
Oh my goodness!
And then like within we had like over, before they kind of like went away, like 2.5 million downloads of ringtones. And
that's incredible.
It's funny because I know, like, I have friends, like, I heard one of your ringtones at the grocery store today, like, while I was standing in line. Like, I've had people say that.
Wow.
They've even shown up in like documentaries where we get contacted, like, hey, we need to get the license for this because such and such was calling from prison and their phone rang and it was your ringtone.
Wow, that's incredible. So you basically like synced your ringtones too.
I guess.
Wow, that's incredible, man. It's so funny too, because a lot of people talk about like passive income with streaming and stuff nowadays, and you were kind of like on the front end of that with the ringtone thing, and you just batched a bunch of ringtones and like, yeah.
We have thousands. We did Halloween ringtones. We did, like, once you kind of like taste that blood, mm-hmm. you're like, oh, this is a thing.
Yeah.
We went full in text alerts. We were the first ones doing, like, we did ringtones that would identify who's calling you. Like, we did little songs like,
yeah, That's
It's
amazing.
your friend Justin calling. Don't you want to pick up and find out what's going on? I mean, we just...
That's so cool. Like, yeah, like the ideas of like batching content and stuff like that are like, those are like social norms now. And you're like, you were on the front end of all of it. It almost like sounds like you like reshaped the jingle market too a little bit.
When I heard that Richard Marx was a jingle writer at first, Richard Marx, who's a like from the '80s hit songwriter, and I was like, okay, I don't feel so like, because sometimes you think about it. I mean, I have one ringtone. It's not even a song. It's just me saying, "Hey, beautiful, you got a text message." Like there's a site called Zedge that's kind of like the new Napster for ringtones. Mm-hmm. 8 million times that was downloaded.
Oh my goodness!
Just me saying that.
That's so incredible.
And my thought is like, is this what I'm gonna be known for? Is like, "Hey, beautiful, you've got a text message." I guess it's all right if it's bringing people joy.
There you go. And that's also a vehicle to do like all the other, we talked about like the all-encompassing career of a musician, like it's just another tool in your arsenal that allows you to do the other things you want to do as well.
And I'll tell you, I had mentioned this before, that success in that area, in that ringtone, opened up so many doors. It got me my first contact at Apple for like a connection there. Mm-hmm. It got us connected with Verizon. We had ringtones that were featured beside of Justin Bieber. Like, it was crazy. Like once you have success in that one area, mm-hmm. it starts to bleed over.
I think it's a really good lesson in not boxing yourself in as an artist too. Yeah. I was talking with a songwriter last night, and she was talking about just constantly being open to new things, and trying everything at least once. She's like, I've been in rooms where I was writing hip hop, and she mainly writes contemporary Christian music. She's like, I'm not a hip hop writer, but I tried it just to see.
Tried it.
Yeah. And so I think a lot of times, like you were talking about, we're concerned about like
perception,
how we see ourselves and like what we want to be seen as, and often we can like close some doors that really need to remain open to doing newer and better things.
We haven't made a new ringtone in years, and that company Zedge just in the last 6 months started offering an opportunity for artists to upload music that they own everything, got to own the masters, got to own the publishing, mm-hmm. to sell, and we've started uploading our stuff there. And we're already like top 10 of their creators with our ringtone content. But something for an artist, I started uploading ringtones of the artists that we work with images, and they're starting to get downloads too. So you thought ringtones were dead. Yeah. They're coming back.
That's amazing to me, man. Yeah. Ringtones are back. That's cool.
Yeah. And they're making it like, honestly, so one of the kids we're working with has a song called Country Kid. And so at his release date, I was like, let's just upload a ringtone with his single artwork, an image of him, a little short clip of the chorus, and then the whole chorus. Mm-hmm. And he's had over 500 downloads of his ringtone, which actually pays a little bit from advertising from that site. But also it's a great marketing tool for his song. These, people that are searching for country music on that Zedge website. So anybody out there, they should jump on that.
Yeah, that's a new market. It's
called Zedge.
Zedge. Z. I mean, I could probably Google it, so I could put it in the show notes if you want. Zedge. Good, Zedge. All right, I'll look that up. That is so incredible to hear about the ringtone market coming. And like anytime your phone rings, like somebody's going to hear that hook. So it's like,
exactly.
It's free advertising for anybody who's got your tune. That's incredible, man. Man, John, this has been an absolute blast, first of all. I'm so glad I got to talk to you about just so many things. We do have a signature question on this podcast.
Okay.
You can answer it however you want to.
All right.
Or you don't have to answer it. It could be music, life, business, whatever.
Gotcha.
Do you have a favorite failure?
Oh, gosh. Favorite failure. A favorite failure. I'm trying to think. I mean, along the lines of your brother, like I've tried out for several, competitions and shows like that. But you know what? I would say this: moving to Nashville, wanting to be a singer.
Really?
and quickly realizing there's way better singers, and that wasn't probably what my niche was.
Gotcha.
So I guess, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, would that be considered a failure?
Yeah. I mean, if it worked for, or like making that decision, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's you can define it however you want to. It's a very open-ended question. So.
I know I'm going to leave and think of like, no, this was my biggest. This is my.
If you've got you can leave me a voicemail and I'll put it in the podcast. Like Keegan actually thought of this other one. So it's up to you. You can answer however you want to, but it's just a little thought exercise I like to give people.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, when did you move to Nashville?
95.
Okay.
So I've been here a while.
Very cool. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday who like kind of grew up here and stuff like that. And I know nothing about Nashville. I'm a very much a layperson to like this culture, industry, and stuff like that. How would you say that Nashville has changed over the years?
When I moved here, it was really kind of the heyday of 90s music. Like it was really big. It had a very hometown feel. Mm-hmm. Like you would see people out. Now I go out to places and I don't know anybody anymore. I used to go out and see people that I knew. Mm-hmm. I think it's just become more commercial.
Really?
Or maybe that's just my perception of it. Maybe it was commercial back then as well, but it just had more of a hometown feel. Coming from a small town of about 2,000 people, it still kind of felt homey.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I mean, the population here is in the past decade has like exploded.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
I've heard a few people talk, and I still don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard a few people talk about this idea of like paying your dues in this city before you move on to other things.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about session drumming because that was that workshop I was in Friday, and it was like other cities like LA and New York, like you can kind of dive right into doing the session thing. But in Nashville, there's this air of like, well, you've got to like play in a bar band, then you got to go on tour and stuff like that. Did you find that there was like this idea of paying your dues when you first moved to the city?
I think so. The one thing that I don't think that I was really good at when I first moved here was maybe not networking. A lot of people are just better, I guess, networking than I was. I'm more of like really wanting to create a friendship and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And that's not the best way to kind of like advance quickly. But as far as paying your dues, yeah, like for a songwriter, I think you have to come in and you have to do the songwriter nights. Mm-hmm. And, basically you're playing in front of other writers, right? Stuff like that.
Okay, that's very good. Oh man, I had one more question. Where did it go? I just lost it. Man,
is it music or
it happens once every interview that I just like totally draw a blank. Yeah, it was music related. Oh, I remember. So whenever I talk to a writer from Nashville, or over the past years, it would be when I'd ask him like, being a songwriter and what do you think it takes to be a successful songwriter and stuff, and the good majority of them that are from Nashville are like, you need to be present like physically in one of the big three cities like LA, New York, or Nashville. But because of things like the internet and stuff like that, some people are saying it's less true that you have to physically be in one of the big three. Do you still feel like it's true that like if you want to do the songwriting thing, like you kind of have to live here?
I don't agree with it because I've done most of my writing. I've probably written more songs over Skype or over like Messenger than I've ever written in person. Because Tyler, the kid that I wrote with for a year, lived in Montana. I've had writing sessions with people overseas. It's kind of, I get it. I think the most normal way would be like in a room together or something like that. But I don't think that's like the only way that can happen.
That's very cool. If you were a songwriter just starting out right now, what would you consider like maybe the 1 to 5 things that you would do just starting out right now?
I would say, like, going back to me, be very critical of your own writing. If you're asking for somebody's, if you are connected with a more established writer, be open to their assessment of your song. Because I think a lot of times as a writer, once you write a song, you're like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever written. Give it 6 months, you're like, no, I don't know if that was that great. So yeah, I think would be open to, critiques of your songs.
Okay.
And yeah, and also I would say be open to co-write with people, and then again, like you said with your friend, be open to write different styles of music.
Yeah, totally. As far as marketing goes, would it be just like reach out to people, whether online or in person?
I think so. Yeah, I mean it's worked for me. Like
Yeah.
if you like you said, if you find somebody that you really appreciate their music, give it a shot. Slide into those DMs.
There you go. Do you? This is a huge question. So if you can't think of one that's still fun, is there when somebody asks you, like, do you have a favorite song that you've written? Does one immediately come to mind?
I have a new favorite song
Okay.
that I've written. But it's like 3 years old, but it's a song called "Watch Me Fall," and Clayton Smalley recorded it.
Okay.
I love the song because it's an absolute true story. Like it's like one of those things where, like it just happened this way, and it was a solo write, which I love about it. And the first time I played it out, you could hear a pin drop, from this big group of people.
That's really cool.
So yeah,
cool. It's already been released?
yeah.
Okay, cool. We can link to that in the
Yep.
show notes. Cool. I'm gonna have to. I got to write down so many
Watch
things.
Me Fall.
Watch Me Fall. I'm gonna have to text you and be like, by who?
Clayton Smalley.
All right, cool. Clayton.
And he actually heard it the first time I played it out, and he was like, "Okay, I want to record that."
That's cool. Do you still go out to writers' rounds and stuff?
Sometimes,
I got you.
and yeah, I should go out more. But a lot of times you go out to writers' nights, and you're like, "Wow!" It just is mind blowing how many songwriters and how many really good songwriters there are. And I think that's one thing that you kind of have to put on the blinders of, like, oh, don't get overwhelmed that there's so many people out here. And in Nashville, you're definitely one of thousands and thousands of songwriters that are trying to make it or have made it. And maybe I'll tell you this. So you were saying moving to Nashville as a songwriter, it will make you a better songwriter.
Really?
Yeah, just because you hear what other people are doing, and if you live in a small town or something like that, you just don't have that kind of peer to peer, to hear what other people are doing, unless you're Skyping with somebody in Nashville or LA or whatever.
Gotcha. There's like a phrase like comparison is the enemy of success. Is that?
I
think
I would believe
like that. But at some level, I think there's like a healthy level. Like you're talking about being in Nashville, it's like, if you can't get paralyzed to the point where you don't do anything.
I love it when I hear a song that inspires me, like, oh gosh, I need to go home and write. Like you feel like I need to leave right now.
Yeah. That kind of hits on a reoccurring theme that has happened throughout this podcast. It's like musicians that find themselves successful are always on a quest to find what they're bad at, find new ways to succeed, and then they don't get mad. They get inspired when they hear somebody that's doing something that's quote unquote
exactly
better. And I think that's the mark of a good songwriter too. Is like you hear a song that you're like, oh, I couldn't do that, but like I want to try, or it makes me want to, like, that's another tool in my arsenal to get better. And I think that's a very healthy and profound statement that you just made. Is like taking songwriting as a skill that is something you practice over and over again.
Well, I'll tell you, like, I've just in the last few years, actually since COVID, have set up regular writing appointments, like on Mondays and Tuesdays. And sometimes I just don't feel creative. And honestly, for the last 6 months, I have not felt creative. Just kind of like, just feels like things are just blah. And and I've had this in the past where like, have I got this like huge writer's block. I don't feel like anything that I'm writing is worth anything. And then all of a sudden, the other day, just walking, the idea came to my head. I brought it to the writing session, and really excited about it. And an outside artist that I played it for already expressed interest in wanting to record it, which is really cool.
That
and
is very
like,
cool.
when you feel like you're like, I'm like, is this it? Have I written my last song?
Mm-hmm. That's
And
really
then-
cool, man.
Yeah.
So it's just that steady exercise of like working that creative muscle.
Yeah.
Kind of forced you into that headspace again.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Honestly, that reminds me about this podcast because the last episode I released until here recently was like March 2020, like right before I would like release an
Yeah.
episode, world shuts down, and everybody was doing like Skype interviews and stuff
Yeah.
like that, which that's totally fine. But there was something about I was like, yeah, the world's kind of on fire. Don't feel like doing a podcast right now.
Yeah.
You know, but like I had a guitar player friend of mine from Atlanta reach out about doing a podcast like earlier this year. It's like, all right, it's time. Like, and it like
Yeah.
forced me back, and now I've been in Nashville for 3 days doing podcast interviews. So
That's great.
So yeah, it's the same kind of thing. You just kind of get forced back into that creative headspace. Going back to you're talking about working with artists and stuff. I talked with my songwriter friend last night about like corporate like songwriter pitch meetings and stuff like that. Have you ever had an experience with pitch meetings for labels or for
Well,
like,
when I first moved here, one of my first internships was with Mark Bright, who produced Carrie Underwood, Rascal Flatts. Like he, at the time he was producing Black Hawk, which was a big band back in the '80s, and so he had an assistant. I don't know if this is how it happens anymore. This is the 1995 version of it, but publishers would come in with DAT tapes, not cassette tapes, DAT tapes, and they would play the song for the producer or the producer's assistant. And I'll never forget, a publisher came in, played some songs, and I won't mention her name, and she's like, "Oh, this sounds really good. Like, I'm going to pass it on to Mark like this." Immediately when he leaves the room, she chunks it in the trash.
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, this guy walked out thinking that his writers or his company's like, has a shot at getting a cut. And I'm like, oh no, she didn't.
yeah, I've heard similar stories, from writers where they'll go into a pitch meeting and like, oh, sounds great, guys,
Great.
love it. No
Love
phone
it.
call back.
Oh yeah. But they get so much material. Yeah.
Yeah, I almost think it's kind of weird when we're talking about like corporate pitch meetings and stuff like that. I was talking with my friend Phoebe last night, who does like the contemporary Christian thing. Like no feedback whatsoever because they get so much material. They're just like, no. And like, dude, if you told me like 3 things I could change about this song, I could give you exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
That's so interesting to me how they're just like, yeah, nope, no feedback or anything
Yeah,
whatsoever.
I guess they just don't think that's there. I mean, they're there to listen for something that's already completed. I can kind of get that. Like
Yeah.
they just kind of. So if you were in a corporate publishing company, you would have the owner of the publishing company that would be going. The writer would be bringing the songs, and they would be sending them back. Like, no, I don't think it's quite there yet. So I think, as far as the producer or artist or record label that's looking for a song, they're like, oh, that should have already been taken care of. Like,
Gotcha.
that's not our job.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
For somebody that like, because I was an educator for so long, I thrive on
Yeah.
feedback. So it's just so counterintuitive to me. But
Yeah.
it's just like, oh no, it should be a finished product before it reaches them. Like, it
I
makes
guess that's
sense.
what- yeah.
But it's so counterintuitive to me.
Yeah, no, I understand. I get it.
Very cool, dude. Once again, man, this is. I thought we were gonna wrap up like half an hour ago, and we're still we're still going, man. This is great. Dude, yeah, this has been amazing. Where can people find you, John?
John M. Griffin on Instagram is probably the best place.
Very cool.
Or if they want to become friends on Facebook, same thing.
Very
There.
cool.
Yeah.
And then Your Name Records.
Your name, yeah, it's just YN Records.
Very
Yeah.
cool. So if I was an artist that kind of wanted to pitch to you, would it be as simple as just like reaching out on Instagram, and be like,
Sure,
hey man, like,
just, like,
check
check
this
it
out.
out.
Let me know
Yeah.
if you like it or not.
Yeah.
That's great, man.
I mean, we're pretty full up.
Yeah.
Me and my production partner is like a studio musician, and he produces a lot. So honestly, like we're fitting people in when the artists that we work with in. But I'm always open to collab or offer advice, or if anybody wants consulting, I'm like available for that as well.
That's amazing. And I know we need to wrap up, but also really interested into what your relationship with your production partner looks like. So, like, when you go in to write, is he like a multi-instrumentalist?
Yeah.
Does he goes in and tracks everything, and then
he sends out for drums, and then if we need pedal steel or fiddle, we'll shop that out to you.
If you need a drummer, give me a call, man. I'm just saying.
I mean, he's super. I would have so much of an ego if I were him. He's like the nicest, most labor. He could produce a whole track, and we'll send it to like one of the artists that we're working with. And if they don't like it, he'll just redo it. He just is that. He doesn't have any kind of qualms about. Super nice guy. No, he was like one of the first people I met when I moved to Nashville.
Very cool. And what's his name?
Dave Flint.
Dave Flint. All right, shout out Dave.
Yes.
I'm going to be your friend now, so you can have another drummer to call if you need one.
Exactly.
So, very cool. You think Dave would want to be on the show? I might have to give him a holler one day.
Possibly.
Cool. I'll be back in July, so.
All
Dave,
right.
I'm putting this into the universe, so. Cool.
He'll be like, why do you want to interview me? That's exactly what he was saying.
Oh, really? Because you're a gem of a human, and I don't even know you.
Exactly.
Speaking of gems of humans, John, I'm so glad I've gotten to be able to just like get to know you the past little while. And you brought me donuts, man.
That's
like,
exactly right.
You did not have to bring me donuts.
Well, I really wanted donuts, so I thought it would be selfish of me just to bring in donuts and eat it myself.
You could bring a single donut, and it would be totally fine, man. So, well, thanks so much again, man. And if you're ever in Memphis or anything like that, or if you ever want to do a part 2, man, the door is always open. Because it's been, dude, in the past hour, my mind has been blown several times of just the amount of knowledge you've been willing to share with me, and I'm very grateful for it. So,
well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. Well, everybody, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. This has been another episode of The Modern Working Musician, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you all so much for listening. This has been another episode of The Modern Working Musician. If you are interested in learning more about the podcast, you can visit keeganpaluso.com/modernworkingmusician. Likewise, if you're interested in advertising with The Modern Working Musician, you can find me at keeganpaluso.com or keeganpalusomusic@gmail.com. You can find us on all platforms at Modern Working Musician. Thank you guys so much for listening, and have a great day.